Welcome. Welcome, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. So welcome to the virtual college exploration for all of North and South Carolina. There we are. Fantastic. We'll just read it from here. So a few quick housekeeping things as we get started today. Those of you joining us, you can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions for the presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you today. And this is just one of many different sessions that are happening. So be sure to check out the full schedule at CACRAO.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about 1 week on that same website. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters.
All right, thank you so much. We'll give some introductions here. Let me share my screen. All right, so this session is Homeschool to College, featuring Bluefield College, Campbell University, and Regent University. So some, why won't this slide go over? There we go. Okay, so some introductions. My name is Matthew Hamilton. I'm the Director of Traditional Missions at Bluefield College in Virginia. I've worked in higher education for over 6 years in both private and public institutions. I'm currently in my 3rd year serving here at Bluefield College. And I do work primarily with homeschool students, both in dual enrollment and the general full-time student population. And currently, I am pursuing my MBA in Management Leadership through the Caldell School of Business here at Bluefield College. My colleagues joining me today, I have 2 of them. We have Bridget Miller, who's the Senior Enrollment Counselor at Regent University, and Bridget has worked at Regent for 2.5 years. She's currently a Doctor of Strategic Leadership student at Regent and works remotely out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, serving all students in the Southeast. And my other colleague and good friend is Mr. Eli Manis, a 2-time graduate of Campbell University's Lundy Fetterman School of Business. Eli is now beginning his 4th year as a senior admissions counselor at Campbell University. Eli currently serves as the counselor and representative for North Carolina private schools and all homeschool students. So the topics being discussed today in the presentation, we're going to talk about early college and dual enrollment, give an overview of what that looks like, because it is different in North Carolina with early college high schools, which does not pertain to homeschool students, general dual enrollment online, and other opportunities through the community college system in North and South Carolina. We will talk also about what each of our institutions offer. What makes this presentation very special is all 3 of us all offer something different. So we'll have the opportunity to talk about that today. Homeschool transcripts and tips, what the colleges look for, what colleges need, and how you can prepare for that. Eli will talk about that later in the presentation. And how to build a community when you send your homeschool student or you go off to college. So that is our presentation for today. So let's get started with some early college and dual enrollment. So what is it? What is early college? What is dual enrollment? I'm sure a lot of you know that, and I'm sure majority of you are already participating in this. But dual enrollment, it's an opportunity for students to take college level classes through an accredited institution of higher education while still in high school. There's all kinds of benefits to that. They're usually offered at a discounted tuition rate or free through local community colleges, which Eli will touch a little bit more on the articulation agreements with North and South Carolina later in the presentation when he speaks. And you can even earn a full associate's degree, a majority of the time in general studies, for almost half the price of a full-time college student. That is freaking awesome. So it's a great opportunity for you and great opportunity for high school students like yourselves to take advantage of that. It's a little bit more of a course load of work while you're still in high school, but it pays off in the end. Most of dual enrollment in early college is primarily offered online with some on-campus opportunities. Now, with that said, with COVID and everything like that, COVID times have made a lot of students, especially in the private and public high schools, move online, and homeschooling has kind of become the new normal, so to speak. So students can study strictly from the comfort of their own living room. And depending on how the classes are structured per the institution, learning can be moved and done at your own pace and structured with required login time. So there's two different styles of learning, and you'll hear about that when we go over our specific institutions of how we're different in that respect. Less time focusing on your general studies curriculum and more on your major. If you pursue that associate's degree, if you're a go-getter and you pursue that full associate's degree in general studies, you'll be able to jump right into your major when you go to college. And maybe only be there for 2 years, barring you're not a medical student or something like that. So that's a blessing as well. And credits are 98% transferable to any institution. So it does not matter which institution you do dual enrollment at. Why I'm sure Eli and Bridget, we would all love for you to come to our respective institutions if you're doing dual enrollment through us. They are transferable. That 2%, like biblical theology, religious studies classes, may not transfer to a secular institution. So you'll want to definitely look into that and look at how classes will transfer to whatever respective institution you're looking to go to. This also provides you as a homeschool student who has been at home, been with your parents, studying, an opportunity to get a head start on your college experience. Britt is going to touch on this a little bit later about how you can build community, how you can get involved, plugged in, and feel comfortable in the environment you're going to be in. But visit as many schools as you can. You never know what school is a fit for you until you set foot on that campus. So I definitely highly recommend doing that. And also, early college and dual enrollment, definitely at our institutions, is extremely homeschool friendly. And I'll touch more on that on my next slide. All right, so dual enrollment at Bluefield College, just to give you a little overview of how we do things here. We offer it 100% online with 8-week terms. So it's divvied up fall 1, fall 2, spring 1, spring 2, summer 1, summer 2. And dual enrollment students can take up to 2 classes per every 8 weeks. So it's a really good opportunity. It is fast-paced, and it's available to students entering their sophomore year. And this plays into my next point about the associate's degree in general studies. We do have a track system to where a student who starts their sophomore year or in their junior year, it'll be a little more fast-paced in their junior year, but starting their sophomore year can do a slow-paced associate's degree in roughly 3 years. 94. This is something that is really, really awesome about our campus community here at Bluefield College. Is 94% of our dual enrollment population are homeschool students, just like yourselves, and about just under a quarter of our full-time student population here on campus are homeschool students. So we're an extremely homeschool-friendly campus. I'm sure a lot of folks have seen us at various homeschool conventions. And different things like that. And if you do see us, stop by and say, hey. It's usually myself or one of my colleagues that are there. Classes are dual enrollment design, meaning no full-time college students are in any of our dual enrollment classes. They are all dual enrollment specific. You're studying with other dual enrollment students from all around the country. And it is not at all meshed with any of our full-time students. So you're all moving at kind of the same pace. And also being Bluefield College, we're a Christian college. And all of our classes for dual enrollment and full-time students are offered with a Christian emphasis, which is very important. The big question, how much? How much does it cost to do dual enrollment at Bluefield College? That's always the big question with parents. But ours is offered at $100 per credit hour for 3 credit hour classes. And it's real simple with the requirements. A student that just finished their freshman year going into their sophomore year, as long as they have a minimum GPA of a 3.0 going into their sophomore year, complete an application, send us transcripts with a cumulative GPA, and a letter of permission from the guidance counselor or homeschool parent, we will have that student admitted. We do not deny a student under a 3.0 GPA for dual enrollment. So if that's something you're interested in, certainly apply. Get in touch. This is being recorded. So on the front slide had our email addresses, and there's more contact information at the end of the presentation. So next I'm going to hand it over to Bridget to talk a little bit about Regent.
All right, so Regent's early college is very similar to Bluefield, so I won't spend too much time talking about the specific details, but at Regent, our early college, you can take it after the age of 16 and after you've completed your sophomore year of high school or the homeschool equivalent, and then you must have a B average in your college prep curriculum. But as far as some differences between those two programs that you just heard and ours, we have online and on campus, which I know probably doesn't apply to a lot of you guys being in North and South Carolina, but it is an option. All of the classes that are offered on campus are also offered 100% online. Those are also 8-week format, so similar to what Matthew was talking about. One thing that's a little different, we do have what's called a rewarding educational performance program. This is essentially a scholarship. So if you were to go to Regent Online, take early college courses within those 8-week formats, any tuition that you put towards that program for early college, you can get back up to $4,650 as a scholarship your freshman year when you become a full-time student at Regent. The amount that would be would depend on how many classes that you took and how well you did in those classes, because to get that scholarship back, you must have earned a B or better in those classes. Those classes are actually meshed with, so that's a little bit different than Bluefield. We're meshed with our undergraduate students. So you'd be taking classes with, people that are at the undergraduate level at Regent. Sorry, I got off track here. The cost for those are $75 per credit this fall. So most of those classes are 3 credits. Some of the Bible classes may be 2 credits. It just depends on what those courses are. If you're interested in the early college program at Regent, you can reach out. Again, it is being recorded. Our personal emails are on here. The undergraduate emails are on here. Just reach out and we can get you a list of all of those classes that are offered this fall. And I'll pass this over to Eli to talk about Campbell.
And thank you, Bridget. We're definitely excited to share a little bit more about some of the opportunities with Campbell University. So one big distinction between Campbell and Bluefield and Regent, of course, Bluefield and Regent have wonderful dual enrollment courses and programs with the university itself. Campbell University actually currently does not have a dual enrollment program with the college itself. But that is something that we do strongly encourage for all of our homeschool students. We see, and I see many homeschool students each and every application year that have some level of dual enrollment credit. So those courses that you may be taking to receive credit in high school, but also potentially transferring that credit right to college as well. So one of the examples of some of the partnerships and the relationships that we actually have a lot of, and did want to speak to dual enrollment with community colleges. So you may have some very local community colleges in the area. That is something that actually in North Carolina, one example, Campbell has a North Carolina Community College Articulation Agreement. And what that means is simply we have an agreement with the community college system in North Carolina that makes transferring credit to Campbell a seamless process, very simple. And actually a part of that, there's actually a community college equivalency guide. So what this guide will show you as you're planning for dual enrollment with a community college, things like that, it'll actually show you what that course code is at the community college and what that would transfer to Campbell as if there's an equivalent. Through that articulation agreement, as Matthew mentioned earlier, a lot of times in dual enrollment, it's a lot of your general kind of courses that you'll need to fulfill, especially if you're looking at attending a liberal arts university overall. So that is something that you'll see. An American literature, right, will come to Campbell as an American literature, Western civilization, things like that. Those credit for credits. The only time that you might see it may be a little difficult is if it's a very specific course, right? So if that's underwater basket weaving, it may be a little bit more difficult for us to award credit for that. But the articulation agreement is a wonderful resource, especially for North Carolina students. And even though it's North Carolina specific, in Virginia and South Carolina, all our other states, we see that it does provide a good baseline and guide for our students that are pursuing dual enrollment through a community college. So definitely a great option for you. And we would strongly encourage that at Campbell if you're looking at potentially attending Campbell in the future. But of course, there's great dual enrollment programs that other colleges and universities offer as well in terms of four-year colleges and universities. Bluefield and Regent are two great examples of that. We are very transfer friendly at Campbell. So as we're working with those brother and sister institutions, even though you wouldn't be considered, say, quote unquote, a transfer student, we would consider you to be a dually enrolled student with admissible transfer credit. So we actually prepared for our transfer students as well as dual enrolled students a transfer pathway. And what transfer pathways are, say you want to major in accounting at Campbell, we have an accounting transfer pathway. We'll actually detail out and show you what courses we would recommend at the community college level to set you up best for that particular major or area of study. So that's something that's very helpful. You'll see those online for Campbell. Definitely would encourage you to look at other schools, Bluefield, Regent, as well as any other schools you may be interested in terms of their options as well. One general rule, and I may have mentioned this a little bit earlier, this is for really any transfer credit, and while we're very much transfer friendly at Campbell University in terms of those dual enrollment credits, no matter if that's community college or a local college or university, as long as a student makes a C or better in that course, it's from a regionally accredited institution, and the course descriptions line up pretty similarly, right? So it's not like an underwater basket, a specific, very specific description. It may be one of those general core requirements like an English, a math, a science, so on and so forth. Generally speaking, that credit will transfer to Campbell. And if we can't award a specific equivalent, we definitely want to make sure that we are offering at least some additional opportunities for you, if that's maybe some credit in terms of just the general college or things along those lines. That way, an elective credit per se, that you can receive credit for those courses. And speaking about that specifically, we do take the best 64 credits. So if you are pursuing an associate's degree, right, typically about 64 credits are in that entirety. But say you take more than 64 credits, what we're going to do at Campbell is to make sure that we take the very best 64 total, or up to those 2 years of courses, to make sure that we transfer that in. And that way you'll actually be in the best position for that major or area of study of your choice. So with that, we'll actually go to the next slide and start talking a little bit more about some homeschool tips for you overall. So if we can go to the next slide, please, and we'll do that right quick. And these are some general homeschool tips that we did want to share with you overall about kind of the process, what that looks like with the transcript. You may already have a transcript that you've made. We just want to share some additional kind of tips, the things that we're looking for. Some of these may be no-brainers for you. Others may be a little bit more specific. So we wanted to make sure to share those. Of course, starting out with student, school, and contact information. We want the student's contact information and the school's contact information on that transcript. That helps us to know, one, that it's an official transcript, but two, also who the best contacts would be for that student, but also for the school. So if that's where mom and dad, or whoever the homeschool administrator may be, definitely want to have that contact information so we know who to talk with specifically about the transcript and those kind of things. So very helpful information there. Of course, and this may seem like a no-brainer, but we do need to see a list of all the courses that have been taken with the accompanying grade. So if that's the letter grade, the numerical grade, we need to see what the course was and then what that grade is as well. It does help us if those courses are listed by the school year as well as the grade level. So if that's freshman year, right, and from 2018 to 2019, that helps us to know when you took those courses, when those courses were completed, and what grade was earned for that particular course. Also, we'll point out, and I'll mention this a little bit later on the next slide after we finish talking here, but with honors or dual enrollment credit, it is helpful to notify and to indicate that on the transcript, because if you don't weight GPA, we can actually see, that is a higher level course, and we can award appropriate credit in terms of GPA and things like that. So that's something that's very helpful if that is a dual enrollment course, or if that is maybe a college level course or an honors level course. And then one thing I would recommend is definitely encourage you, if that's Campbell, Regent, Bluefield, check the high school requirements and the recommendations that these universities have. That may help you in terms of course selection, but of course, if you are making sure that you're fulfilling the requirements for high school graduation, you will be in a good position moving forward. But there may be a few requirements or recommendations, like at Campbell, we recommend 2 levels of foreign language, but that may be a little bit different than other schools and colleges and universities. Graduation date is very important to let us know when the student has, of course, graduated from high school. Definitely include a place to include that. But I will say only put the official graduation date after the student has graduated. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but make sure that if it's graduation date and that's indicated, it is after they have graduated. Prior to that, you can of course list an anticipated graduation date if the student is currently a high school senior, things like that as well. And then one last note here on this slide, a place for the principal or the homeschool administrator's signature and date. That is very important. That signifies to us as of that date and as of that signature that is an official homeschool transcript. So that's something we definitely want to make sure is on there as well. So if we can go to the next slide, and we'll finish a few more tips about homeschool transcripts, and then we'll go into building a community here a little bit later. GPA, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, you definitely want to make sure to provide a cumulative unweighted GPA or on a 4.0 scale. So that's the main GPA that many colleges and universities are looking for. So we can see what that total performance looks like overall, as well as those individual opportunities. So that is what we would consider the unweighted on the 4.0 scale. But then also some colleges and universities look at weighted GPA. I know, for instance, Campbell considers that in our decisions and factors that in. Other schools may look at that as well. So although every school may not require a weighted GPA, it is helpful to help us know what was the academic rigor of those courses. Were those advanced courses? Were they dual enrollment? And that's why I definitely encourage you, if you don't weight the GPA, to include honors or dual enrollment on the transcript to indicate that. And that helps us to weight that in-house and make sure that you're on the same level playing field as any private school student or public school student. Of course, transcript submission is going to be very, very important. 3 of the main ways, and again, this may seem straightforward, but mail, email, and fax are 3 great ways. Definitely want to talk to the college and university, see their preferred format that way. If you do send by mail, a signed, sealed envelope sent by the homeschool administrator would be the best way. And then if you send by email, that's something that if the college or university allows that, it can expedite that process and ensure that we get that a little bit sooner. That is a signed transcript sent directly as an email attachment. That would be a wonderful way to send that in. And then, of course, faxing would be another great option. Again, signed as well by the homeschool administrator. So that is one very important thing in terms of that signature and that date. And then college transcripts. Many schools, many students that maybe if you're pursuing dual enrollment, if that's through a college or university, or if that's through a community college, definitely make sure to send in that official college transcript. Unfortunately, we can't award college credit solely based off what's represented on the high school transcript. You need that official college transcript as well. So please make sure to send those in. College administrators and admissions counselors like ourselves will help you to know when the best time to send those in, but definitely want to make sure that you send that in to get appropriate credit. And then one of the last tips that we would have for you today would be in terms of maybe you're thinking, well, I'm not sure what a transcript looks like in terms of its entirety. I know these details are helpful. There are very valuable transcript templates out there. I definitely would encourage you to show an outline of what it looks like in terms of some of the things that we've talked about already. And some colleges and universities, I know Regent has a template that they recommend as well. That's something that you definitely want to make sure to look at those things and see if there is a recommendation the college or university has so they can help you in that process. But with that said, I'll turn it over to Bridget in terms of building a community once you get to college.
Yeah, so one thing that a lot of students when they come to college are concerned with, not just homeschool students, but students in general, is where do I find my place in college? How do I build this community? So oftentimes you're leaving kind of a little comfort zone that you've probably built over time, either with maybe an athletic team or a community or maybe a homeschool co-op. So how are you going to find that sense of community and build that network when you come to college, when you move away and go to college to study? So there are a ton of different ways to do this. The next few slides are going to be a little bit more generic. Each of our different universities and almost all colleges offer some type of way to build a community. So if you're interested in certain things that we're going to be talking about, just make sure you're looking into whatever college it is that you are looking into a little bit more and see what they offer. So first, one way to meet other students at the same level as you is through something like a new student experience. So these are going to be events, things that are geared specific towards usually freshmen or like first year students, first year transfer students, things like that. This might be something like an orientation, which is often held even before you move into a residence hall or before you go and study on campus. Orientations are a great way to meet students that are at the exact same level as you. Everyone in that room is going to be just as nervous as you, just as new as you are to that university. Other things might be things like move-in events where everyone is moving into a residence hall at the same time. You can meet people and network with people that are going to be living in the same area as you. And then of course there's new student outings or other events that the university or college might plan specific for new students. So a lot of these, again, are specific for freshman students. It gives you a way to connect with other recent high school graduates that are new to the college experience overall as well. Other ways to network might be on-campus activities. These are things that are planned either by student organizations or staff of the university for the students in general. This is probably what you think of when you're thinking of events at a college, right? So things like formals, things like homecomings, adventuring trips off campus, concerts, festivals, those big kind of one-off events. Can you go to the next slide? All right, so another way that you might be a little more familiar with to build a community is through athletics. And you don't necessarily need to be competing at the collegiate level, at the varsity level. There are other options for athletics. So of course you have the collegiate and the varsity level, the Division I, Division II, Division III. But you also have other things like club and intramural sports. So intramural sports are a little bit less of a time commitment. Usually they're a little less conventional in terms of what sports are offered. I know Campbell University, they have cardboard boat racing, I believe. So there's a lot of different sports or activities that you can get involved with intramural sports that aren't so conventional, such as basketball or football or things like that. So there's a couple different options for you to stay active, be involved in athletics, even if you're not necessarily competing at the collegiate level. Most universities and colleges also have something within the fine arts field that you can do to build a community. These might be things like musical groups, bands, and theater productions. And a lot of times, a lot of students believe that maybe they can't get involved with theater productions or musical groups if that's not what their field of study is, right? They think that they can't get involved in maybe the play that's upcoming if they're not a theater student. And at a lot of universities, that's not the case. So this is something to look into if you're looking for a creative outlet or looking to meet other people with similar interests as you and build a network that way. Can you go to the next slide? All right, so the three colleges here, of course, are Christian universities. So a big thing for us is to foster spiritual growth within our students. There are a ton of different ways to do this. These are not, this isn't an end-all be-all list right here. Each university is going to have their own ways that they help you build that foundation. So a couple different options. You have small groups, which are usually groups. They might be themed, they might be small groups of less than 10 people with similar interests. And those are usually formed by the small groups themselves. So these are maybe a student that wants to lead a small group of 8 people that are all studying theater or something like that. So they're usually special interest. There's chapel, which is usually put on by the university. They're more formal. These are things like mass or like a church service that you may think of when you think of an actual chapel. Of course, there's mission trips, which most of you probably know what that is. You're going out into the community and serving, usually overseas, although there are national opportunities as well. Worship teams, and then of course ministry groups. And ministry groups are usually focused on serving the community around the universities. There's a ton of options for those as well. Other things that you can look into, you wouldn't necessarily want to call them resume building organizations, but that's essentially what they are. They're going to be organizations and clubs with activities that are closely related to your chosen field. They're closely related to what you're going to be doing after college. So there are a ton of opportunities. There's way too many to list here, but just for a couple examples, say you're looking to go to law school after your undergrad and you want to become a lawyer. Something that you might want to get involved in to network with people, like-minded people in your field would be maybe something like moot court or law club. Things that'll get you a little bit of experience, a little bit of exposure into a certain field. Say maybe you're interested in government or political science, you might want to get involved in something like student government. Or there are also clubs that are focused specifically around majors. So you'll have things like psychology club or engineering club or things like that, where you're maybe doing activities or simply just networking socially with people that are going to be in your field after graduation. Next slide. All right. And then there are a couple different organizations that might be a little bit more of a commitment long-term. So something that maybe you would start out early on and then be involved with the entire time you're in college. These might be things like Greek life. Of course, a lot of people, when they think of Greek life, they're thinking of specifically only social fraternities and sororities. So this is something like the Pan-Hellenic community or IFC or MPHC. But there are also other ways that you can be involved in Greek life as well. This might be through honors fraternities, professional fraternities, and those are the kind that are centered around one specific field. So there are business fraternities that exist, for example, or service fraternities and sororities. So these might be organizations that are Greek life, but their entire sole purpose is to serve the community. So they're community service fraternities and sororities. And then finally, ROTC. It's not offered at all schools, but at some schools it is offered. So if this is something you want to look into, it's something that you definitely want to look into well before you even graduate high school, especially if you're looking to get ROTC scholarships. The ROTCs that exist out there are Army ROTC, Navy ROTC, Air Force ROTC, and then Marine PLC. And these are ways for you to commission into the military once you graduate college. And can you go to the next slide? All right, so those are just a few ways to build a community. I know that that is a major concern for a lot of students. So we wanted to make sure we address that. If you want to stay connected with us, each of the general admissions emails, the general admissions phone numbers, and our websites are listed here for Bluefield, Regent, and Campbell. If you guys don't have anything to add, we'll jump into questions.
Nothing else to add. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Eli. You all are awesome. And again, just to reiterate, all of our contact information is here, and you can reach either one of us by calling any of these numbers, emailing any of these main admissions emails. It will come to us, so we'll be able to stay in touch with you. And also by registering for this webinar today, we will get some information to stay in touch with all of you as well. Yeah, Bridget, let's jump into questions.
Yeah, I will add also, this is being recorded and sent to all who registered for this event. And on the first slide, our personal emails are listed as well. So you have that option to reach out to us personally if you'd prefer that. We did get a couple questions here. We answered a few of them that were a little bit more specific to the students, but we have one here from Felicity. It says, is the $100 per credit hour also for out-of-state students? I believe this is probably in reference to early college. I know for Regent, our per credit hour for early college is also for out-of-state students. Matt, do you want to touch on what it is for Bluefield?
Yeah, so, and that even goes just for our general tuition at Bluefield. We're a private institution just like Regent and Campbell. I'm sure it's all structured the same way. We don't have in-state or out-of-state tuition. There's different perks and programs for local students and different things like that, but we have one full tuition, and that $100 per credit hour is for everybody. Anyone in the country, everybody pays that same rate. So that is all universal, and I'm pretty sure it's the same at Regent and Campbell as well.
I don't see any other questions that you guys needed to answer. I know everyone that joined us today is very thankful for all the great information you guys shared. So when you all close this window, those of you joining us live, there's going to be a quick 4-question survey for you, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. So if you would take just a minute and fill out that quick survey. This is one of many sessions that's being recorded. So be sure to sign up for additional sessions. Watch for this recording on the CACRAO.org website. So thank you so much, everyone. Until next time, stay safe,